You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your hosts, Thomas Ahrens and Jared Mounts. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
I mean, just really get started.
Well, I'm Ewing Minor. I grew up in Central Virginia. I guess I still kind of live there. I live in Eastern Tennessee, Jefferson City, right by Cherokee and Douglas Lakes. Go to school here at Carson Newman and just fallen in love with the area. I've stayed here in my apartment all summer. It's been great. The main thing is I'm closer to most tournaments because most of the tournaments that Nolan and I go to, aside from the Susquehanna, he's had to drive basically right past here. He's driving, 15 minutes from me is where he's coming through for most of the tournaments. It's a great location. There's a reason a lot of pros live in the Eastern Tennessee area. There's a lot of fishing opportunities, and it's more central.
Yeah.
A lot of tournaments nearby. So just being able to have all those opportunities to get out, go fishing, explore new bodies of water. It's a whole lot more diverse around here.
I mean, that's freaking no joke. At least you guys live where you can actually have a lot of access. Like up here in Northern Virginia, it fucking sucks. It really does when it comes to waters we can fish. I actually poached. I was actually looking for a person to come on the show to the New River, and Nolan actually gave me a number to somebody else because it's so nice that you guys have so many different places to fish. Because we got the Shenandoah, Upper Potomac, Tidal Potomac. That's basically it. And it's all river shit. And that's what the only reason I think my brother and I were successful in college and high school is when you had regional tournaments and all those guys from out of town came to a title, and that's all they had. But on the flip side, the first couple of years, lakes kicked our ass because it was such a long drive for us to go to Smith or Bugs or anywhere that's a lake body of water. What would you consider is your home lake actually?
I guess you could say Lake Anna.
Okay.
I can't stand the lake.
Yeah.
It's got them in it. People all winter long, people will drop 20 to 25 pound bags. I've never had over, I think I had 18 pounds there one time, and it was an incredible day for me. But it's the same 5 to 10 guys that they go out, they smash them. I don't know what they're doing. I've gone out there with live scope and I can't do it. And I can go about anywhere in the country and catch them. And that lake, it still fools me every single time. So, but I learned more just from fishing the small lakes throughout Virginia, which kayak fishing is amazing for those places. Most of your lakes in Virginia are between 100 and 500 acres, I would say. And they've got very different opportunities at each lake. And I kind of miss that aspect of having all those small lakes to go to. There's a lot of big lakes around here that I can fish, but there's nothing sneaky. You can't go to a little 100-acre lake that has giants in it and not a ton of people fish it. It's just not something that exists around here, which I miss that part, but I feel like I learn a lot more. These lakes get more pressure, and
that's the thing too. It's growing up, we had and this is, you're not gonna know where this place is, but there's Goose Creek Reservoir in Leesburg, Virginia, Sleeter's Lake in Round Hill, 150, 200 acres, both of them. And they get more pressure than a freaking Japanese lake. It's insane. And I think growing up, I hated it because I always wanted to fish these cool ass things I saw on TV. But on the flip side, I got really good at fishing when everyone else couldn't catch stuff. I mean, that had to have helped you though. With all the credentials that you have behind you right now.
Definitely. I mean, I think between Virginia and Tennessee and then just traveling all over the country the more you see, the better you'll get. It doesn't you learn more when you go out there and you catch 2 or 3 fish than when you go out there and catch 50 of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to help you to go out there first thing you do. I mean, it helps with mechanics and stuff, but if you go out there, you know where the fish are, you go and you just catch them all day. That's not going to help you. What helps is when you go somewhere, you're uncomfortable, you don't really know what you're doing, and you have to struggle, really figure out what's going on. And it's just the learning process of new lakes. And that's something that Nolan and I think it has a lot to do with our success. Is in Virginia, we were always looking for a different lake to fish. If it's within 2 hours of our house there near Charlottesville, we've probably fished it. Like we've fished about all of them. That's what I would do if I was bored. I'd sit down and I'd go on the map and I'd look, I'd find a lake. Oh, that looks cool. Go on the department's website. Oh, it says there's, most of the lakes, great population of 12 to 14-inch bass and a couple giants if you look at the studies. But just you've got some lakes deep and clear, some will have shallow grass and everything in between. So that definitely helped us exploring all those little lakes.
Hey everyone, this is Thomas Aarons with Fishing the DMV. We decided to try something a little bit different. This holiday season, we're going to be selling our very own fishing T-shirt. That's right. For a limited time only, we partnered up with Jake's Bait and Tackle, and we're bringing you a long sleeve fishing T-shirt that has the Shenandoah River. We did it in a very artistic style on the back side here that shows the whole Shenandoah River in its glory. That way, our Shenandoah River anglers can represent the fishery that we really love in the Shenandoah Valley. And again, this is a limited time only thing. We are only selling 70 shirts. I repeat, we are only selling 70 shirts that have the Shenandoah River on it.
Do you come from a family of bass heads, or did you who got who into it?
So came into a family of just fishing. Didn't matter what we were going for. Usually it'd be trout or crappie. I mean, that's from what I remember growing up, those were our prized catches. We'd go trout fishing. That helps with the river fishing. Like at the Susquehanna, we were catching the fish on a little bug. We were using spinning rods, but it was kind of just like fly fishing. We were throwing a little bug, drifting it to the fish, maybe twitching a little bit, but just coming from a multi-species background and not necessarily bass only, you see bass doing some things out of the ordinary, which maybe you've seen with other species and know more of how to catch them.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I remember it was probably middle school, Nolan borderline hated bass.
Really?
There's we'd go carp fishing a lot. Carp pull really hard. We were all about the fight. But once we got into bass fishing, just the aspect of how different they will act from one body of water to another, from one set of conditions you're facing to another. They change more than any fish. I can go fishing for most species and you're going to have 3 or 4 baits and you can always go catch them on that. A bass, I mean, it's endless, the different baits that you can throw for them. And just, it's kind of a mind game of figuring out what those fish are doing. And
that's what makes it fun too, honestly.
Yeah, that's what made us fall in love with it. Wasn't, yes, it's they fight great, they jump a lot, but just how different one fish acts to the other.
So you got him into it?
No, he got me into it, but really when he got into it, it was his freshman year of high school. And no, it wasn't his freshman year. I guess he was probably a sophomore or junior when he first started it. One of his friends that he had gone trout fishing with or something said, "Hey, I'm on this bass fishing team. We've got a boat. I need a fishing partner." You want to come do it? And they went fishing, and they fished for a season, and he started to like it a lot. That kind of caught my eye with all the bass fishing he started doing. And he could drive, I couldn't. He's 4 years older than me. So I'd go do whatever he did. If he was going fishing for trout, I was going fishing for trout. If he was going fishing for bass, I was going fishing for bass. So it just kind of just shifted me to do what he was doing and follow in his footsteps. And then my freshman year of high school came around. I fished my first tournament and I blanked. And that motivated me more than any tournament I've ever fished in my life. Just wanting to do better.
Well, what is the age difference between you guys?
4 years.
Oh shit, that is literally me and my brother. So yeah, I'm the older guy. I'm the older statesman of our group here. Like, I mean, that's a weird dynamic too, because I've always thought I'd try to put myself in my brother's shoes too. Like, he always fished. So when we fished high school tournaments together, I was in the older section, he was in the younger section, which always pissed me off because like we fish all the time. So as long as he caught a limit, he would win because everyone else didn't have a pulse. But it's weird because it also pushed us too. Like once we got over the phase of I'm gonna kill him for being in the boat. Do you guys bounce ideas off each other at that stage? Like, when did you guys learn how to coexist? Or maybe it's just my family that's toxic.
Well, really, I feel like there was never I don't know, butting heads, that type of stuff.
Competitive rivalry, I guess would be the
Like,
PC way.
yes, we're competitive, but we're far enough apart in age that we never fished high school tournaments against each other. We never fished college tournaments against each other. It wasn't until this kayak stuff, aside from a couple local tournaments, that we started competing against each other. And we were so used to helping each other out. You know, you go to one tournament, he knows something and that type of stuff. But once we got to where we were competing against each other, we were already used to kind of working as a team, helping each other out, and that carried over. And I've always been very open with how my practice goes with whoever I'm staying with. It's backfired a couple times, people sliding in, fishing stuff, but most of the time, bouncing ideas off of each other. People are respectful about it. I'll tell people, hey, this is where I'm catching my fish. You can come fish this same area and see what I'm doing. Just use it on stuff that's not this. Like, stay out of this little area. You can go wherever you want, do the same stuff. You'll catch fish. And that works all the time. There's pros that do it. People that are successful consistently, they're not doing it on their own. They're helping each other out. It's just, you can't compete by yourself.
You can't. And I feel like that's the dirty little secret about, at least boat tournaments. I don't know about the kayak world as well. You're more in that than I am, where that's the dirty secret. It's like, there's a reason Scott Martin is so good. And that's one thing. It's like, even his dad now confesses, like, yeah, you network the shit out of it. That's like how you got to do it. This idea of this, like Carl Jochimson, where you just get plopped there and you just grind, sweat, toil, and tears. I think it sells, but the reality is it's hard to do it that way. You need a network.
And Carl Jochimson has a network.
Mm-hmm.
He
does.
He started doing a lot better, more consistent in all of his tournaments since, the first year when he didn't make it back.
Mm-hmm.
Then, he's a lot of tournaments. I guess he's rooming with Polinick, is it?
Yeah, and it's also like, I think he's like married to the cousin or something like that.
Yeah.
But again, like, I guess for the fans at home, like, I don't care what you think, but the fact is, like, that's not a bad thing. It's just, it is what it is. Like, that's kind of the nature of the beast, is networking like that. And and when you have a brother in this, you do have that person you can bounce it off of too, but you also need to create your own identity, which I know it's kind of weird. Like, we had our vibe with that too growing up in college, where we're trying to create our own vibe about how he wants to break down a lake versus. So when we did it, we were actually partners. I don't know about you guys when you guys were in college, which is probably why we had more fights. But we had two different styles that developed. That definitely got. I think it helped us and hurt us. Like some tournaments, it did help us a lot because we were able to narrow shit down a lot faster because of our two different strategies. But also, yeah, we would butt heads more. Like, when did you develop, or did you just always develop your own style and your own flavor, or like how did that go down? Like high school all the way through college.
I mean, it was. I feel like I really didn't develop a style of fishing until I got to college.
Okay.
There wasn't really enough opportunities for me to go to completely polar opposite fisheries and try to figure out what works for me. I'd just go do, I'd do the same stuff, but it wasn't necessarily a style. It'd be, okay, I'm not getting bit. Let me go throw a shaky head. That's whatever you say. That's not a style. That's just your go-to, can't get bit. And honestly, I can't stand throwing a shaky head anymore because I use it all the time. Like, I'll pick up a Ned rig before a shaky head. That's just something about it. I've thrown it too much. I've caught too many bass on it. But no, it was once I really started traveling to the kayak tournaments is really what shaped me as an angler, because I was going out there, I was doing it on my own. I didn't have someone else in the boat saying, hey, maybe we should try this. It was me in my own space doing what I thought was right, found out what worked and what didn't for me very, very quickly.
No other voices to deal with.
Yeah, it's if something goes wrong, it's your fault. Like, if you make the wrong decision, there's no one else to blame it for.
How did you get into kayak fishing? Because I mean, if I'm right, so you did bass or college fishing, high school, college-ish. So did you just get in that right in college, or is it after college? Like, how did you get into that world?
So it was actually, my first kayak tournament ever was, I guess, sometime I think it was the spring of my junior year of high school. And I messed everything up. I've always kayak fished since I was 7 or 8. I was catching fish out of a kayak before I even stepped foot in a bass boat. But it was just being comfortable in that already. I fished a couple small tournaments, and then there was, I guess it was not this past spring, but the one before. So spring of 2021, I was, I'm on the fishing team here at Carson Newman. Lee Rose Koza, a lot of people know who that is. She's on the team. Her dad is the owner of Dugout Bait and Tackle, which is he's really what got me into all this, made it possible. She said, "Hey, do you want to come fish this kayak tournament on Santee Cooper? Not Santee Cooper. Why'd I say that? It was Seminole. Sorry, I fished too many places, but
That's a good thing.
yeah, it is. But I was like, well, my kayak's not really what you fish for $8,000 or whatever out of. So she said, oh no, don't worry. We've got kayaks. You can use a demo. So I went into that and I was like, sweet. I get to fish out of a Hobe. This is going to be awesome. I didn't even, I wanted to do good in the tournament, but I didn't care that much. I was getting to fish out of a kayak ever since I was a kid, watching mainly saltwater kayak fishing, seeing people in Hobes. That's awesome. I want one of those.
Oh, you watch saltwater kayak fishing?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Who do you watch?
It was. You remember the glory days of 30 Miles Out?
Yes.
That's what we watched. That all the time.
Oh my God. I'm dating myself now. Holy crap. Yeah. I used to watch that. It's just like that. And then I really got into I don't know if you heard of this guy, Field Trips with Robert Field.
Yep. I've watched a lot of his stuff too.
Yeah, just that that is, I even talked to the guy. I had the guy on the show that does the Maryland, the big saltwater tournament out of Ocean City about that. And I even told him, I think that's the next frontier, saltwater kayak fishing. Like, I mean, that is the most like, I don't know, barbarian, back to your roots way to actually catch something. Like when you're catching something so big, it tows your damn boat. And the strategy of how you do all that, like it is so freaking epic. And I think that's why like those videos do so well. I
Hmm.
catch a how to catch a bass video, I might get 100 likes. If I try to hook a shark with a kayak, that's gonna have, you know, half a mil right there. And I think it's because people are just allured by that. The idea of like that old man in the sea Hemingway thing about going out there in the ocean with a kayak, and it's freaking awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I went down to, it was like beginning of July. I
Mhm.
went to Panama City.
Seriously.
I took my kayak out there. I caught a king mackerel, a keeper gag grouper, and like 150, 160 pound tarpon.
But I need to hear that story. How the hell did that go down?
The
Out of your
tarpon?
kayak? Yeah, out of your kayak?
Yes.
Holy shit.
So I went out. It was the second day that I went out in my kayak. Me and my buddy, we went out on someone's boat with them, had boat issues, came back in, you know, days almost over with. I was like, well, I found this wreck out here a couple miles out off the beach yesterday. So I went back out there, and the day before I hooked up on 6 or 7 fish and only landed one because it kept breaking me off in the wreck. And he let me use his grouper rod. And so I went out there, hooked one fish, still broke me off. I guess I pulled the hooks on a king. I was coming back in. The sun was setting. Hadn't caught anything but bait fish at this point. Now I was coming back in across the bar, which is where all the tarpon, when they're migrating through, they go right along there. And it's like, well, I'll just cut the weight off of my grouper rig and stick a live bait on it and pull it across this for like a, last minute, maybe something will happen if I'm lucky.
Mhm.
I got the bait back there, set the rod in the rod holder, and I turned around just to look, and I saw the rod tip was going crazy. I was like, huh, that's weird. And it started ripping. And I guess when I reeled down on it, I don't know if it was where it was turned or what.
Mhm.
The reel, being a grouper reel, is a 3.9 to 1 gear ratio. So
Holy shit.
I'm trying to reel tight on this fish,
Good
and
luck.
I'm like not coming tight at all. I think it was where it was straight 60-pound mono. I think all the tension I was feeling was literally just the line dragging in the water.
Oh my
I
god.
was like, are you kidding me? Did I just hook a king on this? Like, not what I wanted at all.
Mhm.
And then I actually came in contact with the fish, and it went nuts. And I was sitting there, I got my GoPro on, clicked it, and it died.
Of course.
Yeah. That was like the one goal, was to get it on GoPro.
God.
And I had set my GoPro down and turned it off since it was on 20%, just in case something crazy like that happened. And I don't know why it died, but it did. Sometimes it's just not meant to be.
Mhm.
But I was taking, like, pulled my phone out, like taking pictures of the rod boat up, because I was like, no one's ever gonna believe me if I lose.
How deep are you right now? Because this is not like 8 feet flats, right? Like 8 feet, 4 feet
This
flats.
I was in like
Get a vibe.
20.
Okay, so this
20
tarpon's like going down.
No, it was going up.
Oh, he's going up. Oh shit.
He was trying to make it to the moon. But no, I was sitting there just snapping as many pictures as I could for proof, and knowing 95% chance this fish comes off. It's a tarpon. You don't keep them hooked. And the fight kept going on and on and on, and it was getting darker and darker. And I was out here fighting a tarpon in the dark out of my kayak. Still had to go back through the surf that was It was a little too rough for my comfort,
Yeah.
but it was my last day there. I had to go. So
Jesus, man.
I get this thing boat side. First of all, the thing towed me 6 miles an hour.
Oh my God.
Towed me
Out
like
or down the coast?
down the coast.
Okay.
Didn't really matter because I still had to pedal back.
Yeah, I didn't think that. Holy shit.
But I get it up next to the boat. The hook was buried like in the roof of the mouth. Very strange place to hook it, but couldn't have been hooked better. And I'm super fortunate that I got that fish to the boat. I've got to go do it again. I've never caught a lot of fish, and I've never had the same adrenaline rush that I got from catching a tarpon of that size out of a kayak. It
Oh
was
my God,
just
that's freaking awesome.
incredible. And yeah, it was just like you said, being able to uh just being towed around, not having control of the situation. You don't know what's about to happen. You're doing everything on the fly. There's no, oh, let's turn the boat and pull it away from this. It's pulling you where it wants to go.
Mm-hmm.
You're at the mercy of the fish, and it's hard to explain. It's just something you gotta go do on your own.
I feel like it's because it's as men, it's something about it's uncontrollable, and that's so enjoyable because it's the closest thing you can get to a life or death situation that's like it's not, but it feels like it. When you hook something so big, you're like, holy shit, getting towed around God's earth. Like there's a bit of like, yeah, it's a little scary too. Like, oh, and it makes you fall in love with it too, because everything you catch feels bigger. Except you're a tarpon. Like, yeah, that's freaking awesome.
Like, a lot of people will probably hate me for this, but I caught a blue marlin a few years back. Great experience, and still just much larger fish. It was probably 300, 350 pounds, somewhere in there. Nowhere close to the adrenaline rush from that tarpon, just because of it was out of a kayak, and it was all me and the fish. That's it. There's no one else.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I don't know. Maybe it's one on one. It's a whole bunch of factors that go into it.
Because you
But
could fail. Like, I think that's what it is too. Is like you feel like you can fail too. I've caught I went sail fishing a couple years back too, out of a of course we went way out. I think it was Key West. I think we were at anyway. But the fact is, like, yeah, you're in the boat and you feel kind of safe. Like, I don't know. There's that other aspect that you might not get it in, or you might not come back. Like, there's so many variables that are out of your control.
mhm.
That freaking awesome. Like, I mean, I would love. I mean, I really want to go down out of Panama and do that whole thing because like that looks insanely fun. Where first off, you get to catch something new, like which is awesome. But the fact is, like, yeah, you're going to be towed around. It's also about how you use your kayak as drag. I think is interesting too about how you actually like you use your equipment to actually tire the fish out because that's what you're doing, almost like jaws, which I think is just is so freaking cool and fascinating to do that.
Yeah, it really is. Like, with the setup I had, aside from more line capacity, I couldn't put more pressure on a fish safely out of my kayak. Like, when I hooked into, I don't know if it was a grouper or snapper or what, I like, it made me a little bit uncomfortable when you're
Mm.
straight up and down. It's pulling down. I had to have my rod straight in front so it wouldn't flip me.
Well,
And
yeah. Yeah.
like, when I got snagged in you're fishing a wreck. I don't know what was down there, a ship, bridge. They put something there. It's artificial reef.
Mhm.
Saltwater guys will all know what that is, but you get snagged a lot. It took all I had in me to break off, because I'm not gonna cut the line and you know let 60 feet of line just float around there. So I mean, it's pedaling as hard as I can with the rod. Had to tuck it in my armpit so that it was straight behind me, pulling me back instead of to the side where it gets tippy. But I mean, it's all you have. You can't bump it up anymore.
And that's something, unless you do it, I don't think people understand it. Where like you can put so much more pressure on a fish when you're in a boat, especially like okay, a bass, trout, blue, whatever. When you're talking saltwater, like it's completely different. Like how much leverage you have. Let's say you are doing grouper and amberjack in a wreck. Yeah, if you're in a boat, dude, you can just crank on them and really lean, but you got to be careful about how much pressure you can get on them. And then also it's the strategy too. I got to think like, do you drop on top of a wreck when you're on a kayak versus a boat? Because you got to think about like, do you try to get them to hit outside of the wreck just so you have some space between them and the wreck before they go back into it? Like, I mean, it's just like more strategies you can have.
You've got to put your bait in the wreck or you won't get bit.
Oh shoot.
With the groupers at least. It's about, I'd say, 10 to 15 seconds of raw, like you versus the fish. Past that, once you get it out with groupers, they usually give up and you can just kind of reel them up. But it's either in that moment it wins or you win.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the fish win a whole lot, and I've never been whooped so hard by fish.
Dude, that is saltwater 101. Like, so how many times have you been to Florida? Sounds like you go there a bunch.
I hadn't gone too many times before that. We'd go spring break every year. But now, being in East Tennessee, it's like 8.5 hours to get to the Outer Banks where we normally go. And it's like 8 hours to get to Panama City. Where I'm going to go. There's much better saltwater fishing in Florida. Everyone knows it. There's no question about it. And the opportunities that you have from a kayak there compared to anywhere else is incredible.
Plus, the current doesn't rip. I mean, it depends on where you're at, but I'm just saying, in general, like the Carolinas, the current ripping there is insane. Like, I mean, I took, this was retarded, but I took my fiance at the time down. We were using our kayaks down. I think it was Charleston. That wasn't fun because like when that stuff rips, I mean, it rips through there, which is good and bad, but you get your exercise in.
An average week in the Gulf, I could take my kayak out of 7 days. I'd say probably 4 or 5 of them could take my kayak out there. In the Outer Banks, Atlantic, no.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. Like, you might get 1 or 2 days a week if you're lucky. And one of those 2 days is probably going to be pushing it. It's just the surf's bigger, the waves are bigger, everything's against your odds. It's not a great area to try to do it.
I mean, it's also, guys, like anyone that's actually listening to this, please don't be stupid. Like you practice some common sense stuff so you're not on the next I Shouldn't Be Alive, because it can get a little hairy out there when you do this stuff. Didn't you and your brother actually go like this summer? I thought I saw something about you guys doing some sheephead stuff. Was that just
where'd
you go too?
Yeah. I literally left the Outer Banks on our family vacation, left a little bit early because my buddy said, "Hey, everything's biting down here right now. You need to, like, if you're gonna come right now." So
awesome.
And I'm fortunate to have friends that live down there. So if I want to go down there and fish for a couple days, it's not like I'm driving down there paying for a place to stay. You know, I've got friends I can stay with, go fish, makes the trip a whole lot cheaper because, I mean, even though gas is expensive, lodging's still going to be the most expensive part of a trip.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not lying there. That's the thing coolest about kayak fishing compared to like boats and stuff. I mean, 100% like a kayak's more versatile, because I think like even with my boat, like I would not take that thing out in the Gulf, but I wouldn't like bat an eyelash about taking a kayak like freaking anywhere if I had to pick one thing to travel with, like anywhere in the country.
Yeah, at that point I was driving my mom's car because
with a
my
Hobe
car shot. Yeah, on the top.
Oh my god.
I didn't get a trailer until I've been car topping a PA-12 for a year and a half. And I mean, it's rough, but My car, I'd get 17 miles to the gallon on the interstate. My mom's car, I'd get 20.
Damn.
Tell me any boat that you can tow and get more than 15.
Oh,
and that's really good.
no,
So
God, no.
it's, and then you get there, don't have to burn gas. It's, you don't have as much freedom to go where you want, but it's a whole lot cheaper.
I can't argue that. I mean, it freaking sucks. Like, I mean, minus like I fished my first kayak tournaments this year, and like you gotta freaking like change your, like, that's the one thing I realized when I fished my first kayak tournament is you gotta change your mindset. It's not like you're gonna run every damn point and get on a point pattern or secondary. Like you gotta like pick an area. In general, like within general reasoning, but there is a mindset change going from a boat.
If you're
to a kayak.
fishing points, you find an area with a lot of points and you cycle 5 or 6 of them.
Or like an electric motor.
I have a Newport NK180S, so
You get a little bit more range then.
I get a lot of range out of that thing. It's pretty incredible. I've got it set up with the 24 volt 50 amp hour, and it's a Bioenno power, but I can get 18 to 20 miles on one charge, and
nice.
I'm going 4.5 to 5 miles an hour everywhere. I can't be like an 1103 going 6-7 miles an hour, but I can go a whole lot further. And I that's what I like about it, because still in a kayak, you're not going to go but so fast, but being able to have that range, and it's really helped with me wanting to go more places fishing out of my kayak just for fun. Because if I want to go somewhere that's 5 miles away from the ramp, I'm not going to be beating myself up to do that. Would
you rather have that for saltwater or a tournament?
It was pretty incredible for saltwater. I'm not going to lie. I went out on the second day. I didn't take it because it was too rough. I didn't want to have the extra weight. But the first day, it was glass calm. I trolled for hours. I ended up like 5 or 6 miles out off the coast. Just, I don't know. If something happens to the trolling motor, I can always pedal back. And being able to have that just slow trolling, it was great. Didn't have to pedal at all. But no, it's really nice to have. But with the Hobe rules, I still like not like the no trolling motor aspect, because of when I first got into it, I couldn't afford a trolling motor. I didn't have a trolling motor. There's a lot of people in the same ballpark, and just people are out here and they've got spot lock on their kayaks. That's part of kayak fishing, I think, is being able to position your kayak on fish.
Yeah, and guys, for the people at home that don't know, so for the Hobe series, you're not allowed to have assistance electric. It's got to be like basically, I think, under human power, I guess is the wording that is used in the rule book. But then there are other tournaments like the KBF and series like that you can basically deck out and use whatever you want. And I kind of agree with you there, because like the one thing I don't like it, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't like it when kayak tournaments go to the same old lakes that the big guys go to. I feel like that's not where the kayaking is cool. It's where you get to go to places like the Susquehanna, like places that the big boats can't go. Like, and again, like a Lake Fork, okay, fine. But when everyone's going to Kentucky Lake, when there are 1,000 different lakes that kayaks can only use where they can shine, that's where I think it's neat, where it's really cool to go to places.
Kentucky Lake is an interesting place for a kayak tournament because of how shallow those fish will go. There's so many places that are opened up because you're in a kayak. And there's a lot of people that catch them really good on Kentucky Lake, fishing places that a bass boat has no shot of getting into.
Interesting.
But that's the other way to look at it. There are, like, even when you go to these other places, you're more stealthy. You can get shallower. You're not spooking on when you're going shallow. So that's the other aspect to it. But really, like, Hobe keeps, yes, they go to lakes that everyone knows, everyone wants to go to because you have to. But like Broken Bow, I haven't heard of a single big bass boat tournament out there. And that was probably one of the best numbers lakes I've ever been to. The fish weren't that big. They were mainly 15, 16 inches. That's why everyone had 80 inches. And just the amount of fish that you could catch without having to go far was incredible. Everywhere you went, like there wasn't a place that you could make a cast and not feel confident that you're going to catch a fish. Having places like that, that's really cool. I love those lakes.
But there's so many lakes like that, and you brought up something that all my guests talk about. Is like, why do you have to? Like, the one thing that was so cool about MLF back in the day when they started was like with the smaller fields, you could go to places like those lakes in the Carolinas. Like, holy shit, no one outside the people that knew about those lakes. And that's the thing about kayak fishing that I always thought was really cool, is where you can go to places that were not as big, that weren't as known, and you get to have the adventure part. Because, you know, I don't like to fish the Potomac River, and it's not because I know how to fish it. I've been fishing since I was like 6. But the fact is, if you could tell me I could go to the Potomac or a place I've never gone before, yeah, I want to pick the place I've never gone before. Like, there's that weird thing about me as an angler, like that's exciting. And with kayaking, I feel like that's where you have this really cool ability to do it, is you can literally have a schedule of places that people have never heard of, because every state in this country has a shit ton of lakes that no one's heard about, and a couple of them are pretty freaking good, I bet.
Oh yeah, there's definitely tons of lakes like that, but they could also, there's not a state that I know of that doesn't have some special river system that bass boat tournaments will never go to.
Mm-hmm.
And also, all the lakes that they're going to, the river system is usually in play. And that's another oddball thing to throw into is, you know, yes, we know what it's going to take from this lake, but no one really knows what the river's going to have, because bass boats aren't going in there. You can't look up tournament results for a place and be like, oh yeah, the elites were there in 2016 and it took this amount to win. But wait, there's 20 miles of river they can't get to that's in play.
Upper Roanoke River, like things like that.
Yeah, stuff like that. Like when the TOC was on Fort Loudon and Tellico here in Knoxville, they're both the rivers were in play. And, well, I guess all 3 rivers. There's a ton of river that was in play, and that's stuff that you never see when the Classic went there. You didn't get to see that part of those fisheries, and that's another unique part about the kayak fishing stuff that's very cool to me.
You definitely seem like a river rat at heart, because that's the first thing that you just said there. Like, what is your home river that really bread and butter?
Well, if we're being very specific, the North Fork of the Rivanna River, used to walk down there almost every day after school. It's, I don't know, a 20, 30-minute walk. We'd walk there, bite there. But those fish in that section of the river behind our house, they only got fished for by us, but some of them would start to get smart.
Yeah.
We fished there all the time, but really Rivanna River and the James River, Upper James, not the tidal James that everyone sees. The smallmouth, current, typical river fishing that you would think about, not the tidal sections. It's a hit or miss place. There's certain sections that are really good, certain sections that aren't. And, I've caught.
Oh shit! So it feeds at James. Okay, that's weird.
Yeah. There's places from super super skinny to nearly as big as parts of the James. And you have everything from little smallmouth, big smallmouth. I caught like a 7-pound largemouth out of the Rivanna. It's got all of it.
Seriously? Wow.
Yeah. But there's not a whole, you can't be going to the Rivanna and expect to catch a giant largemouth, because that's something that we have fished there years and years and years. And there's certain stretches of the river Nolan and I can both call every single shot. Like, we know there's going to be a fish there. We know there's going to be behind this stump, this boulder. You know where the big ones sit. You know where the small ones sit. Just that experience. You can probably do the same on some parts of the Potomac. Just that being your home water.
And that's the thing. You're right too. I don't know if you can see the screen right here. So am I in the right spot? Am I too far north?
I don't even see where that is. Let me see if I can. See. So right there around Scottsville is the stretch of the James that I grew up fishing. Oh, what? And from the Rivanna, from both sections, as far up as they hold bass, all the way to where it dumps into the James. We've fished all of it. So
it dumps in above Scottsville?
Yes, I believe so. Wait, does it? I don't even know.
I don't know. You live there, not me.
That's the one thing I'm not familiar with, is where it dumps in.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
you know what? I'm gonna be up all damn night, looking for this damn thing too. So it's that's crazy.
If you go to Charlottesville, it flows right through Charlottesville.
Oh, that's my problem. Okay.
But yeah, it's the rivers in Central Virginia have definitely played a big role in us having success on the Susquehanna.
Well, that's the thing too, is as much time as I put on the title, I probably have put more on the Shenandoah, the Conococheague, the Upper Potomac, just doing all that stuff, because I grew up in Winchester, Virginia, which is right there with all those river systems. And that's what's, again, it's almost like the Atafo thing. When you fish that style, you understand that there's an unpredictability of it, that unless you grow up doing it, you don't understand it. Like, here today, gone tomorrow. The river's always changing. You talk about flow rates, tidal stuff, all that. With that though in mind, when you go into tournaments now, are you looking to repeat those conditions? Because you guys are also, both of you guys, but especially, clearly you are too. You're really good with panoptics. So let me try to compartmentalize this question. You can catch them in 6 inches of water, but you also have, panoptics in your boat, which definitely has a niche that's not usually shallow. So how the hell did that become a thing?
That became a thing. That actually brings us back to my first Hobe tournament, where when we went down there to Lake Seminole, and I get there, we pull up to their camper, and Jamie Koza, he's the owner of the dugout, he said, "You know how to use live scope?" I was like, "Well, I've used it once." He said, "Here, you can use this kayak, PA14, 12-inch Garmin, and live scope."
Oh my gosh.
I caught there was one fish in my limit that tournament that did not come off of a jerkbait on live scope. And then I used that money in order to enter the next one, borrowed the kayak again, and caught him on live scope on a jerkbait again. That was on Watts Bar. And then I had enough money built up to buy my own kayak, which That's when I got my PA 12360. That's the kayak that Nolan fishes out of now. So that kayak's brought to you by Watts Bar Lake.
So you're the reason he fishes out of a Hobe 12, then, basically what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of crazy how all of this started. Like something so small is well, probably seemed pretty small to Jamie, letting me use one of his kayaks, and now it's gotten me into it. It's gotten Nolan into it. And my first tournament out of that kayak was Lake Hartwell, and
Lake Hartwell, damn, dude, wow.
I put the 7-inch Garmin from my fast tracker on it. I stripped it off of the tracker, stuck it on the Hobe, had it rigged up, not very well. It was pretty terrible. But it gave me a map and sonar. That's mainly I needed water temp and a map.
Mm-hmm.
But I went there, and I mean, my buddies, they had a couple months earlier. This comes back to that networking stuff, and a lot of people won't admit to it, but they said, hey, they had just won the Bassmaster College Series on Lake Hartwell. So they said, I was at that time I was staying with one of them. I was staying in his house that summer, just because, again, more central, closer to the tournaments. And he said, hey, you might want to check out this area, because they caught most of their fish there. And I went, and at first it wasn't looking too good, and I started to figure some stuff out, and I ended up winning that tournament. And it's people say still to this day, oh, you went and got dots and went and caught them. But they gave me a area to look at. There were several other people fishing the area I fished both days, and I was the only person to catch a limit from that launch.
What's with that gossip stuff about that, though? Like, what do you think it is? Like, why do people get it all? Because they want to explain it away, like why you're successful is because it's just because you did this.
But I mean, if it's not like, yes, I don't like people when they go to I have a tournament here, let me find someone that's good out there and ask them when they don't know them. If I have a friend that's done good in a tournament somewhere, I'm not gonna just go in there blind. I mean, it'd be dumb to do.
But then let's just take all that out of it and just say, like, on a purely like rule standpoint, if it's legal, what's the problem? Like, we can get all the other crap there. It's like these are the same people that can't fish MLF, where MLF try to do that shit. Like, you look at the Brandon Poliniks and all that of the world, like all those guys left. And I think one of the reasons they left is because they weren't doing well in that format. Like, some people just, I don't know. I just think it's weird because you still got to catch them. It's learning how to take information and use it correctly, and then knowing what information not to use. And
Now,
I feel like that's a science.
I will say, if you just go get waypoints, it won't work out. 90% of the times, getting waypoints won't work out. A good area of the lake is usually what I try to ask friends that have been there before. Hey, like, if they say, yeah, on this end of the lake, no one caught them. Like, it's a dead zone. You don't want to be wasting your time. You do have a limited amount of time to break down a lake. You might as well have a good place to start. A good area to start looking. And everyone has the same rules. There's no reason that they can't be asking someone, hey, what part of this lake is good? Because most people, yes, there will be lakes that you don't know anyone that's. You'll go to some lakes, you don't know anyone that's fished. Other people will have the advantage over you because they have friends or connections that know something about the lake that'll help them.
Well, and that's why for the people that have watched this show, like I complain about this too. And I complain, I point out, like, when the Northern Opens go to the James River for the next 600 years, clearly, if you fish the James River at that time every single year, you have a distinct advantage over everybody else because you understand the patterns that those fish are going to be in for a multi-day tournament. Because spoilers, when 200 boats hit the water for 4 days, those fish behaviors change a little bit. And that's something that unless you fish it, you don't know it. But then when you're dealing with like that kind of level of competition and you go to the same places every year at the same time-ish, like the same patterns, whether it's the spring or whatever, like you learn how to fish that way. And you learn because you have those same connections and stuff. That's why the elites, for example, most of those guys didn't know what the heck to do when they had to fish in the fall when COVID hit. Because you watch when they went in the fall, and there were a lot of guys that were mad and they were spun out because they didn't know how to actually go out there and just go and fish, which I thought was fascinating too, just to watch them like, I don't know, the cream rose at the top in that point when everyone had to just go out there and just figure it out.
And I mean, you'll always have those tournaments where there's nothing you can find out about that time of year. Most of the lakes you go to, you can go and find a tournament that's been there at least the same month.
Mm-hmm.
You can see what people are doing. You get a good starting point. You know how it's probably going to be won. And that's when you take there's two strategies. You can go how everyone says it's going to be won. You can try to do that or just fish your strengths. I've done both. I've done well with both. You just got to feel it out. I guess that's what practice is about, trying to figure out if you need to fish your strengths or fish how you need to be fishing or how you think you need to be fishing to win the tournament.
What are your strengths? Because it seems like you're pretty much good at everything, whether it's a tarpon in the middle of the ocean, a shallow river, or panoptics. Like what are your strengths?
Strengths, shallow water with current.
Shocking.
That's one of my strengths, just because I've done it so much growing up. And then live scope is one of the only reasons that I'm good at offshore fishing. I never really understood it. I could fish brush piles, I could fish points, but as far as going and graphing fish and turning around and catching them, I didn't know that when I was sitting 50 feet away from fish, how close I was. I'd look at my waypoint and be like, all right, they're 50 feet away. I didn't know how close that was till I got live scope. It just kind of brought it all together. And now I can go catch them without it. But I really enjoy seeing those fish on live scope. 9 times out of 10, they don't want to bite.
But you're learning.
And there are so many weird, different little baits that I've started throwing on live scope just to show them something different.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if I'm going fishing shallow, I'm not gonna have too many baits. I mean, it's typical jig, crankbait, chatterbait, whatever, the top water. But when I get into that live scoping stuff, I mean, I've got at least 7 or 8 different baits that I'll throw at suspending fish chasing bait. That's when they're deep chasing bait. They come up shallower, you've got another 7 or 8 different baits. Mm-hmm. It's just, there's so many different things, and being able to see the fish react. It's similar to what I grew up doing in rivers. People might say I'm crazy, but when I'm fishing a river, there's a lot of times low water, you're watching the fish react to your bait.
No,
you know when you've got to see when to see with their body language, when to twitch, when to throw something else, when to completely leave it alone. And you can do the same thing with live scope. And that's the part that's fun to me. And that's what's so addicting about it is I'm not just throwing at a fish that I see a dot out there, letting my bait fall down to it and it eats it. A lot of people that don't have live scopes think that, and they still think it no matter how many times you tell them. But you have to make those fish react, and just time on the water, time using it. it comes down to a science almost. To just you see the fish do a certain thing, you're like, oh, if I throw this bait, they'll bite it.
It's digital sight fishing. It's digital sight fishing is what it is.
Literally.
And I've had so many people on the show, and like before your video airs, it'll be the one with Matthew McCluskey, who is basically the local guy on Occoquan Reservoir.
I know. Yep. He's
talking to him about live scope and how he talks about how he learned more about fishing. I think that's what people that hate panoptics, and I think there's an argument, by the way, guys, to be made about tournaments with and without live scope. Like, okay, fine, but the point is, it is a cool tool where you learn how fish react to baits, and that shouldn't be like the reason people are so good with live scope is not just because of like it's not just the tool itself on where like you can see the fish. You're learning how the fish interact with the bait, and you can quickly make that change. And that's what's so deadly, I think, with live scope.
Yeah, it's 100%. That's exactly what I was trying to get across, is just being able to see them and make that change.
And then the thing that you guys and you, Matt, and everything, it's the ability for you to know when not to do something. Where it's like me and my little ADHD brain, I feel like I would press that too long. And you guys have the instinct built up about knowing like, okay, I got to back out of this. This is not going to work. They're not active. They're not going to do this. I shouldn't do this. And that's a skill, like what you said. It takes time to develop that, and especially for you. Like, you're not a deep water guy. You didn't grow up in the Carolinas chasing bluebacks, deep water, or smallmouth deep water. I think in your DNA, which is kind of like mine, you're a shallow water guy first. And it's weird because you hear those voices, which, I always call it like that, the voices in your head. And I feel like it's so hard to know when to ignore those voices and when to listen to those voices. And that's just got to be so hard because you're so diverse in your abilities on the water. And that's just got to make it's a positive, but I think a negative as well.
And there's been a few tournaments where I've locked into live scope and I haven't caught my limit.
Mm-hmm.
But there's those times you find fish, they're the right fish, and it's only a matter of time before they fire. Luckily, here in this area, usually there's this thing called the TVA app that tells you when they're going to bite.
Yeah, that helps.
But other lakes, you've got no clue. And it's same with shallow fishing. There's so many different things that can make the fish bite. You can be around all of the fish to win, hit them 15 minutes too early or too late, and catch nothing.
Well, and that's the thing too, like for your place, the Ravenna, like, which I found, by the way, like, do you guys have like flow rate apps for that place? Like, I know like the bigger rivers, the new Shenandoah, Upper Potomac, you get flow rates.
There's gauges.
Do you have gauges?
I never even looked at that stuff.
But that's so random too. Like, I mean, I fished a tournament on the Shenandoah, and it's like what the gauge said, what my eyes said were two different things about the flow rate, which is so different than TVA. TVA is almost, I think, spoiled compared to when you just fish a pure river, because like it's not as clockwork as an app. Like, what do you think about that?
I miss natural flow.
Really?
Because, well, you'll go to the rivers here. Sometimes, like, say tomorrow I went to the river at 7 a.m. There would be no water, no current, and it'd be tough as nails. You go in the afternoon, you can throw anything you want, they'll bite. When there's water, they bite. And it's the fish, instead of there being, the fish will get into a certain stage, like the Susquehanna, how those fish were. They were all doing this one thing. They were sitting in those deep holes. It was the last deep water they had, and they weren't going anywhere. You have that throughout the year because of the rain adjusting the water levels. Mm-hmm. On these rivers around here, you've got it. They're making those changes throughout the day. It's not, and it's, yes, there's a clock, but you can see it, but it takes, depending on where you are throughout a river or a lake on the TVA, it's you know, that gauge might say they're pulling this much water, but depending on where you are, you might not have water, you might have more than it says. It's something I still haven't figured out.
It's so
It seems
crazy
so
though.
easy. It seems so easy, but it's not.
But if I ask a bunch of guys from Tennessee about that, they would say rivers are the hardest thing, TVA is the easiest. But then you ask a bunch of people that like just fish like normal rivers, that's the easiest thing in that. It's so weird, like where you grow up, you have that instinctual skill with it. Like, and I'm sorry that shit plays. I never thought I was a good tidal fisherman until I fished college. And then you fish against a bunch of schools that have never seen tidal water before. And then you realize like you just have an instinct that it is what it is. Like you just do subconsciously have a better understanding of these places. Which also translate, like, I mean, again, like, I mean, we have to get into it because my viewers will get all pissy about it, but like the Susquehanna River tournament, like, clearly, like, there's no spoilers that you guys did well there. Like, I mean, you guys are like Virginia river rats, like, and for you guys, for my Tennessee listeners, Virginia has a shit ton of smallmouth rivers. Like, we should literally have a smallmouth circuit, which is like the New River, the James, the Roanoke, Upper Potomac, Shenandoah River, and then throw in the Susquehanna too. Like, you could have 6, 7 rivers right there. We have a lot of smallmouth rivers. Um, but then you said like the deep water holes and stuff. Like, I mean, yeah, like that's textbook stuff that you subconsciously know if this is what you grow up doing.
Yeah, and I don't know if people were just expecting the fish to be in the same places, but like as far as last year, the Susquehanna, where I caught my fish, like almost all of my fish last year was dry rock. There wasn't water within 15 feet of where I caught my fish.
Hmm.
And it was just polar opposites. But I knew with my history on the rivers in Virginia, they're a lot smaller than the Susquehanna, but they set up the fish do the same things.
Yeah.
I knew where they would be to a certain extent. Like when I went into the first day of the tournament, my tournament was based off of 2 bites.
Damn.
I caught a 18-incher. No, I caught a 19-incher, then I caught an 18-incher. And I left. And I was like, all right, I at least got somewhere to start. And I went and I started there. And that's the main reason I did a float compared to Nolan doing a single access, where he drug up, fished, drug back down. I had to float because I didn't have as many fish found. I went to that area that I thought had a lot of fish, and I had in my first hour and a half, 2 hours of the day, I had over 90 inches. But then at that point, I was able to just go practice for the rest of the day. I made a few calls, and I knew where the fish were for day 2. Day 2, my morning didn't go well, and I just went along, and I knew where other fish were. I had seen them the day before, which is the beauty of the water being low. You don't have to stick fish to find them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to be more efficient on day 2, knew where those fish were, had a much better day. Well, I say much better, but it really doesn't look that much better on paper, like 92 something compared to 93 something.
Inches matter.
Yeah, a whole lot. I've seen a quarter inch in a kayak tournament mean thousands of dollars. So,
do you think I don't know how much you're aware of this. Like, do you think the flathead have a lot to do with the way the fish are positioning year to year? Because I keep hearing more and more. We're actually going to have we're having the Maryland biologist on for the DNR that does the Upper Potomac, because the Upper Potomac has a shit ton of like flathead catfish in it now. And we're trying to get somebody from Susquehanna on as well to talk about that.
I have no clue. I've fished there now last year and this year. Last year I didn't catch any. The water was too muddy to see anything. This year I saw everything that lives in that river except for a flathead.
Really?
So I don't know if I was in an area that doesn't have them or what, but I saw channel cats, I saw muskie, smallmouth. I even saw a largemouth. One largemouth. It was a big one. Apparently there's just random big largemouth throughout the river. Not many, very very few. But
Yeah.
I was hoping that one would come into play on day 2 because that would have been the difference. But it was gone. So, but I don't think my fish were affected by flatheads because I don't think I was around any of them where I was catching fish. And other stretches, I've got several friends that live up there in that area, and they all say like the flatheads are a big issue.
I think and again for everybody, because I know we have catfish guys on the show too. I think it's an issue when it comes to like specific times when they need to use those deep holes. I think
Yep,
winter time, because
that's
I think,
exactly
yeah,
that. My
yeah,
buddy, it's Steven Sisto. He's an incredible fisherman on that river. He doesn't fish it anymore because he said it spoils him, gives him unrealistic expectations for when he goes other places. He fishes lakes in Pennsylvania when he gets the chance to fish because that tough fishing builds him up for when he goes to other places. But I think all 3 years that Hobe's been there, he's cut a check.
damn,
And aside from when he went out this like this year, a couple weeks before the tournament, he went out to go fish a small local tournament with a couple of his friends, and he dislocated his shoulder 15 minutes in, didn't even get to fish. That was
how,
the only time he had been on the river since the year before during the tournament. And he showed up Saturday morning. First place he fished, didn't work out, moved somewhere else, figured out what they were doing, put something together, and he managed to cut a check.
holy shit,
So he knows that river really well, and he said that exactly what you were saying. The smallmouth aren't being hurt by the flatheads, except for in the winter when they go into the deep holes. That's the only time you see them intersecting.
yeah, and I don't know how it's gonna play out. Like, and again, like, I don't know.
But
There's
then
nothing you can
again,
do.
my opinion on it, everything's in those deep holes.
Yeah,
They're not just going to be eating the smallmouth. They're going to be eating creek chubs, suckers, small carp, bluegills, crappie, everything. It's yes, it hurts them, but it's not. I don't think a flathead catfish can ever completely ruin a river like that.
I hope not. You know,
If it does, I will go to war with some flatheads.
like I've heard like the blue cats are even worse. Like we had John Odenkirk on and Jason Hallaker for Virginia DNR, and they talked about this. And Jeff Keeble, who actually ran the Shenandoah River Keepers, he said like the thing that's more dangerous is the flathead, is the blue cat, because they proliferate more than a flathead does, and they can handle salt water way better. Like, and so they will literally they will eat and eat and eat. And so they're seeing on the James River, the Chesapeake Bay, and the upper tidal Potomac too. It's like they're going way down into the saltwater line,
And
and just eating everything.
blue cats are very dumb.
Yes,
Like
I agree.
I don't think there's a dumber fish in the world. Flathead's very smart. Blue cat eats anything that comes in front of his face. A flathead, you put a piece of cut bait in front of it, it probably won't eat it. It wants a live
It wants, yeah.
chub. And I also think that might be, I'd rather have a flathead trying to, or not trying to, but a flathead in a river that's not, when it's not welcome there like they are in the Susquehanna, than to have a bunch of big blue cats in those deep holes because they would eat everything.
They would. And it's the same thing like we've heard on the Shenandoah with the muskie. Like people got so freaked out that the muskie are going to eat all the smallmouth, but like that's just not like their MO. Like, and I know you guys have them on the James like a lot. I don't know about the Riverine River, but
The Rivanna.
Rivanna.
I've never seen a muskie on the Rivanna or the James, except like the very upper sections, which I didn't really adventure into fishing until my senior year of high school. But
Why?
the Shannon, I just never did. I'd go to the Rivanna or the Shenandoah, the South Fork of the Shenandoah. That's where I would run into muskies, is on the Shenandoah. But I don't think they don't really seem to affect smallmouth. I don't think they, except for if you hook a smallmouth around a muskie, I don't think they look for those as food. I think they're looking for suckers and creek chubs.
I think so too. Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And again, and guys, for you guys that don't know, that are living under a rock in Virginia and PA, this is a huge hot topic, is the muskie and the flathead, because people are really protective of their smallmouth, and we do have a lot of really good like smallmouth fisheries here, and people are very worried about that. And I know the muskie thing is a big issue because, so the muskie, if you guys don't know, muskie were introduced from the DNR, Virginia, PA, things like that, into these river systems. The flathead were not. Those were privately stocked, so to speak. And both are kind of figuring out this ecosystem here. But I think a great example is you look at the New River. The New River somehow figured it out, where it's kind of had this homeostasis thing happen where you can have flathead, muskie, and smallmouth in it. And for a while there, the smallmouth in the New River, like that was the river for smallmouth. And I think the James in Virginia took it over as like the number one river right now for smallmouth. But I think we're going to get homeostasis again on the Susquehanna, the Upper Potomac, the Shenandoah. I think it's going to happen.
Regardless of what people say about the fish, they're going to balance out. They're going to go through cycles. Fishermen mishandling fish, not keeping, but mishandling fish, is a bigger issue than any of these fish, in my opinion. Like one of the fish in my limit on day 2 of the Susquehanna, I caught, there was a stick in the water in the middle of a deep pool, and it was sitting just above it. Sight fished it like most of the other ones. Caught it. And then when I was going to look for more, that same stick that I caught the smallmouth from over top of, there was a muskie sitting under it. Neither one was bothering each other. Like, I think they just kind of, they live together and they live around each other. Yes, when they're smaller, they might have a couple run-ins, but there's a whole lot of things that eat baby smallmouth. Mm-hmm. Birds, people. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, there's gonna be predators of everything. So I really just people are the biggest threat to all of these rivers.
God damn, dude, that is a freaking bumper sticker. You're right, though. You're really right. Like,
it's everything. I mean, there's from fishermen, non-fishermen, people that don't even know they're affecting the river. Like, that's the biggest threat to all of fishing.
What do you think the best river is in Virginia right now? James?
I will say the James.
Yeah. It's on a great cycle right now. It really is.
There's one section of a certain river that I have not mentioned, and I will probably never mention on any kind of video or podcast.
Probably safe.
It's the most incredible, and it's like it's not like it's a 5-mile section of the river. It's like a mile. And my personal best smallmouth was from there forever. 4 pounds 11 ounces. It was 20 3/4 inches long.
Virginia River?
Yeah. Small river.
Hmm.
And that's where, before the Susquehanna, I told Nolan, I was like, hey, go there. Like, water's probably low. It'd be good to test out that bait that you want to try. And that's where he went. I think he had like 94 something. And just, I mean, he was just out there messing around, catching a few fish. Like, it's full of big fish. And that place has a lot of muskie in it too. I have seen several muskie, and the muskie will sit right with the smallmouth.
Yeah, it's so weird because we have a river like that up here where I'm at now, where it's like the Conococheague, which feeds into the Potomac. I don't care about saying that because there's no place you can have public access to it unless you want to do like a 3-day like float. Yeah, I don't know. That's like, to me, it's so crazy how many rivers we have, and that kind of does, again, it just feeds into the way my style is of fishing. and why I think kayaking is more and more important to me right now in my stage of my life. But with that said, like, do you still do boat tournaments? Like, or are you 100% in? I mean, based on the plaques on the wall, I'm assuming you're 100% into the kayak world. Like, do you ever want to get back into boat fishing?
I'm still fishing boat tournaments.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm at Carson Newman. I'm on the fishing team here. This spring, I was more focused on kayak fishing and really just focusing on school because I had tried doing a bunch of kayak tournaments, a bunch of boat tournaments. School's got to come first. You got to be able to really find a balance. And it took me a little while, but I think I finally found that balance, and I'm going to try to fish a boat tournament on Saginaw Bay, but that didn't work too well as our brakes went out on the way to the ramp.
Oh shit!
But yeah, that one was a pretty scary experience. But
What happened?
well, we were coming to a stop sign and we couldn't stop.
Shit.
There was a very, very large ditch, and we hit it probably, I don't know, we were probably going about 40 miles an hour and totaled the truck and boat. And my fishing partner, actually my roommate too, his back was fractured. How many places? He doesn't know.
Does he? I want to hear. Wait, who was driving?
He was driving.
Oh, okay. Hey, do you want to come on the show real quick? I want to hear your side of the story. All right. So what happened?
So we just pulled out of our campsite. I guess we were staying hour and a half away from the ramp and came up to like our first little stop that we would have had to have made, this little stop sign on the little two-lane road. I went to brake and it was kind of like hard to press down my brakes. I pressed down really hard and it kind of went to nothing. I said, Ewing, it won't stop. And then the next thing we knew, we were in a ditch. We both got out of the truck. Didn't really think it was as bad until we got out and my boat was laying in the back of my truck. And
oh my god!
Yeah, and I was walking around in my truck bed and I was like leaned over and I went to stand up. I was like, my back kind of hurts a little bit. And
oh my god!
One thing led to another, and I realized my back was broken.
Holy shit! You're chill about that, dude. Dear God.
Yeah.
How fast were you driving? You're really chill for having your spine severed.
I mean, I was probably going 40 down this road. I mean, it was a little road. I wasn't really in too big of a hurry. And yeah, I just couldn't stop.
It was pretty terrifying. The scariest part was when luckily our coach was right behind us. So he pulled up and he was like, "Is everyone all right?" That's when he said, "My back kind of hurts." And then he went to get out of the bed of his truck because he was just looking around like, what has happened? Rushing. We don't know what we were doing. Just, as soon as we came to a stop, we both, not what you're supposed to do, but we both jumped right out of the vehicle to like, hey, let's get this boat out of the ditch and keep going. Then we realized it's a lot worse than we thought. And the worst part, at least for me, was when we were going just to get him checked up, and I could hear like he was, I don't know, moaning, groaning, whatever you
like hard to breathe on the whole way to the hospital. It's probably the worst pain I've ever been in. It was all the way to the hospital in the back of what are those called? The little Jeep trucks. I was stuck in the back seat of that. We had every single seat full. Yeah, we were jammed in there tight. About an hour and a half drive to the hospital. It wasn't fun, but they gave me a shot, and I really haven't been in pain since. So I
thought he was about to die right next to me. Like he's just his breathing wasn't sounding okay, and
Yeah.
I was like, is he about to like? Is his? We had no clue what was wrong. He just said he had
Did
a
you
sharp pain in his back.
Can I have your boat?
What'd you say? Can you have it?
Can I have your boat? Basically,
It's
if you
somewhere-
die, is that what it was?
It's somewhere in Saginaw, Michigan.
So like,
Right.
how did you guys like? Do you guys actually fish together on a team?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, I got to hear that then. Like, how'd that happen? Do you guys
Uh,
actually get to pick each other, or did you guys
Yeah.
like?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I mean, we're still just, how when it comes to fishing as a team, you've got to find a partner that you fish well with.
Right.
We still haven't. That was our first tournament we were supposed to fish together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't know if we should take that as a sign, but we're gonna try to fish another
Try
one in
it
the
again.
future and see what
Yeah.
happens. Different boat, different truck.
Yeah.
Hopefully, a little bit different of an outcome.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Now, do you kayak fish as well then?
I mean, I grew up in Middle Tennessee. Got a lot of rivers. I've got a little Ascend 12-foot kayak or 10-foot. I don't know. Never really been serious about it, but I have always grown up fishing out of a kayak and off the bank and in a boat, everything.
So, what do you think the pros like? How do you guys approach then a team tournament then? Like dealing with that in college, like how do you like to break down water? Do you guys both fish from the front of the boat? Do you guys pick different water columns? Like, I mean, again, like how would you pick apart? I don't know. Let's like freaking name a lake. Like, how would you pick it and how would you break it down?
You got to name a lake for us.
Yeah.
Oh my
Name-
god. Okay.
Name some big popular lake.
Okay. Let's see
We
from where
probably-
you. Let's see from where you guys are. Let's go with Smith Mountain.
Smith Mountain.
Yeah.
I've never been to Smith Mountain.
Okay, there you go. Well, spoilers, it can be good and bad at the same time.
It can be really good and it can be really, really bad.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know if you can see that thing. Right, there you go. Smith Mountain Lake,
Right.
Bassmasters there 2 years in a row. It's about 30,000 acres. There are blueback heron, and it's Roanoke River flows right into it. Very clear down at the base, deep docks. Most of the docks have actually pylons, things like that. No, not a lot of floating docks to give you a vibe. So how do you two break it down in the boat, I guess is what I'm saying, like as a team?
Since I've already fished there before, I'm going to let him go ahead and say how he would fish it.
So, I mean, from pretty much, I feel like Ewing would say the same answer if he was just looking at a brand new lake. Always what I've done, if I would pull up Google Maps and look at the upper end of the lake, look in the river. I'm a shallow fisherman. I'd look up there first. If it doesn't look good, I'll probably pick a big creek arm, look up some of the bigger creek arms, see if I can get my boat up there as far as I can get it, get away from people. I kind of treat my boat like a kayak, I feel like. I'm not afraid to beat it up. I'm in an aluminum boat for a reason. Yeah.
So you don't like the idea of panoptics, is what you're saying?
No, I'm a big 2D guy. Big so.
So how does that play into your guys' strategy? Because I mean, one guy is fine like jigging with panoptics in 100 feet of water, and it sounds like if you can't walk out of there, like you're not going to fish it.
Yeah, we like to do that too.
We're both kind of in the same mindset of we're either out there doing something weird with some little bait or spoons,
Jig and
wrap, that type of stuff that you see people catching suspended fish on that are really finicky. We're either doing something like that if we're comfortable. It's either something like that or we are as far back in something as we can get, push pulling, fishing up dirt shallow, catching fish where they probably shouldn't live. But when you do find them, they're aggressive. So that's kind of, you've seen in my tournaments, I've basically done exactly that for all of my tournaments. I'm either out really deep or I'm really shallow. And I mean, we've both come from completely different parts of the country, and it's grown up fishing the same way. So I guess that kind of shaped both of our styles.
But
And
that helps so much for both of you guys, like having two different styles, because it really allows you to cover multiple spectrums when you're pre-fishing versus if you guys were both deep water guys. Okay, that's going to really shade how you approach a tournament. But because you guys have two different like perspectives, that's got to help you in pre-practice.
well, it's kind of funny because uh, when I first got here to Carson Newman, I was known for taking my bass tracker. Everyone, you probably know it as the Tin Man. I hope you have seen it at a tournament that no one fished out of it.
I did.
I really hope you did.
Yeah.
But I'd just take that thing. I'd push it in places. I'd push it out of places. I'd hit rocks. I wouldn't tell my dad. He now knows. He now knows. But at first I was, I was being a little rough on the boat and getting into some places where fish had not seen anything. And I guess that probably comes from a tidal river things where I really started doing that is going way back in creeks and stuff. And I brought that here and it worked for me. And, some places, basically, if I can't catch them in 3 inches of water, I'm 30 feet or more.
That is a very extreme way to look at life. It's like either I can walk out of there or we're in the goddamn ocean. There's no in between.
Yeah.
Like I just try to target fish that don't get as much pressure because you try to find them on the opposite ends of the spectrum, go to the extremes, see what you can find. And when that doesn't work, that's when you go and you fall into the same thing that everyone else is doing, fishing 5 to 10 foot of water.
So what do you think of Edwin's strategy? Do you agree with that? Or would you have a different?
Completely agree. I mean, we fish together all the time. We're roommates. We're always in the boat together. We fish pretty much the same. We do the same stuff. Yeah, we do the same thing.
And we're going fishing tomorrow. I don't know where we're going yet. We haven't decided that. After I get off of here is when we're gonna discuss and try to figure out where to go. But we'll probably catch fish in about 2 foot of water or less, and we'll probably catch fish in 30 or more.
So then how do you guys come to the decision about what you're going to do before a tournament? Like, is there, and I'm not saying a fight, but do you guys do the map study together? Do you just let Edwin do it all for you? Like how does that break down?
We both kind of I guess kind of look separately and together.
Do our own,
yeah.
and we usually end up sending each other the
Same
stuff.
Yeah.
He'll send me a waypoint on something, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I was looking at that."
Okay.
Vice versa. So usually we end up scoping out the similar areas, or at least if it's not the same, at least similar areas. And during practice, we'll try to break it all down, see what works with what conditions. And tournament morning comes around, just like any other time, you've got to make a decision on what you're going to do. And we make that decision the same way someone else would. Wherever you call them best and think will hold up the best is where we end up going.
So at what was it? It was the 2015 regional we had for the FLW. My brother and I were literally in a fisticuff fight in the boat because it was day one and we were on the we were Upper Bay, and this was like the top 10 teams get to qualify for the national championship. And we were arguing about the next decision because we had a bad tide. It was a bad tide. That's just what it was for the whole tournament. And it was whether we give up our main spot we found, and just go up into the Susquehanna to finish out a limit. Because we were really debating that because like everyone was going to have a bad sack that day. And we knew that. I think your brother was at this tournament. I know Adrian was there too. And we were debating that because we thought if we could catch like just 2 or 3 fish that are about 3+ pounds, we would be fine. We knew no one was going to catch the limit. And it ended up that day only one team caught a limit. But we were arguing about the next strategy. Do you guys ever have that moment where you're like in the middle of the heat of battle where you're talking back and forth to each other about what the next step is? Or is it pretty much just you're the perfect couple out there
and you don't have those, you guys finding out that next strategy, because I think that's so important for a team to do well. Is you not that you're fighting, but you're able to have those conversations about the next step.
I mean, I think we both know when something's not working
Right.
and we need to change.
Right.
And it's kind of hard to argue, hey, this isn't working, let's keep doing it.
Right.
Well, I mean, yeah, like, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, hey, we suck right now, we should do something else. That I get, but like, do you guys are you always thinking the same thing, or do you guys have two different perspectives of what you should do next? I guess.
I mean, we haven't run into that
No,
situation
we
yet
haven't really
because
butt heads at all. But
we've only fished little club tournaments together.
Mhm.
We haven't been able to, like, the first time we were going to fish a national event together, we just, piled the truck up in a ditch and didn't make it.
Oh my God, that's a great story. You guys will probably win the Bassmaster, the College Bassmaster Series, and you'll be able to tell this story because that's my vibe right now. That's what I'm feeling right now. Oh my goodness. So when's your next tournament together? Your big one, your college certified tournament.
I guess it's the
big, what is it? Big
the
bass,
big bass, splash bass. I don't know, something.
collegiate big bass,
Yeah.
whatever it is, on Kentucky Lake. We're gonna go out there and with our other roommate. It's gonna be 3 roommates in a boat.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
probably butt heads with him, but
Oh yeah, we'll definitely butt heads with
but-
him. We
and
butt
we-
heads with him all the time.
but he's great. We love to pick at each other.
Yeah.
It's honestly probably a good thing to butt heads some. If it was all lollipops and rainbows, then you don't learn anything from that.
No.
So
Yeah,
we're
like,
gonna go out there and see what the 3 of us can put together. Hopefully, we bring back 3 big ones a day.
That's freaking awesome, guys. Like that's so cool. So, I mean, I guess, I mean, I don't want to keep you till like freaking midnight. I know you guys got like other things you got to do here. I mean, what is one tournament besides the Susquehanna one? I mean, guys, if you want to hear about the Susquehanna, he's probably been on like 37 podcasts like his brother. This episode's more about just about Edwin, since I haven't given him a shot yet to tell his story. So besides the Susky, what tournament helped you feel like you belong? Like, I had a tournament growing up where when I did well, now I was like, oh shit, I'm not a piece of shit. I can do this. I feel like I trust my skill set enough to pursue this. Did you ever have that tournament that when you, after that tournament, you're like, okay, I know my worth?
Well, for me, it was
You're
because everyone knows last year. Well, if you follow the Hobe BOS, last year I had an incredible, almost flawless season until the TOC. My worst finish was like 14th, 15th. Like an incredible season. I didn't have a tournament where I was like, oh, I should have done this. Like what I did, I got the bites I needed. It was if I landed them or not. But this year, I was on the struggle bus. I mean, the first tournament I had on Toledo Bend, 4 fish on day 1. I had a comeback on day 2, but I didn't have the comeback that I wanted. I was like, man, like I really sucked on day 1. My second tournament of the year, Santee Cooper, I had 4 fish on day 1. And I was like, all right, this all started it was one tournament before the TOC on Dale Hollow. I had 4 fish. And then I went to the TOC, day 1, 4 fish. And then I went and I was like, I got to go back to Dale Hollow. Went there, fished a tournament, 4 fish. And I was, I was starting to think I was cursed. 4 fish. Like I wasn't going to catch a 5th bass again. It was not possible. I couldn't do it. And I managed to slide in and cut a check at Santee Cooper. I cut the last check, 20th place, $650.
Damn.
And then that tournament really did teach me a lot because I messed up on that one. Looking into the tournament, I was looking at the lake. I was like, I want to go fish in these woods up at the upper end of the lake. Like that just looks awesome. Why would you not want to go 2 miles back into the woods and catch bass?
I mean, of course.
And I went, but it was right after the week after the elites, and no one caught him up there. So I was like, oh, I'm not, don't even mess with it. It's not right. Like, they're not going to bite up there. I'm going to fish these other areas. And I also had, so Skylar Hamilton, he's local to here. He's good friends with our coach. He was like, yeah, the lower end's like, that's where you need to be. So I focused my whole practice, never even looked where I had originally said I wanted to fish just because it looked cool. And on day 2, I said, you know what? Screw everything else. I'm going in the woods and I'm going to have a good time. And that's how I cut a check. And the person, I think it was like first, second, third, and fourth, were all fishing in that area.
Wow.
And it was just not trusting my instinct. And I was like, all right, this is finally the turning point of my season. When I was like, okay, I just need to trust myself. But then I went to Eufaula and I caught one 12-inch bass that I barely made 12 inches.
Mm.
And that one really hurt. But I guess that's when I went to Broken Bow, that's what made me feel like, okay, yeah, I'm meant to be doing this. Like, I don't suck. Like, I can actually catch a limit. But practice, like, was incredible. Everywhere I went, I caught fish. It's just an incredible lake, beautiful scenery, terrible service. Unless you have AT&T, everyone with AT&T was rocking around like, I don't know, they could probably be live streaming on the lake. I couldn't even get a fish. And so there was a bite that I got on, and I was like, I'll blow the tournament away with this from what I've seen, what I've heard. Talked to the tournament director because it was something questionable. And he said, no, you can't fish that. So I was going into the day, like, kind of day 1, I was going in like, dang, I wish I could be fishing there. But I went to where I thought was my best bet aside from that. Had an incredible day, caught tons of fish. I was like, I got the day 1, didn't have 4 fish, finally broke the curse. And went out there on day 2, and I struggled. Like, I had a limit early, but that lake just has so many fish, it's hard to not catch a limit early.
Mm-hmm.
And I was struggling. I was sitting there worried, I'm not going to cut a check. And I just hit one of those magical flurries that everyone that's had a successful career talks about. Like, there's that one time where you hit that magical flurry. Nolan hit it in the I hope he listens to this, because Nolan hit that magical flurry in the college bass bracket, but it didn't work out for him because we like second place a whole lot. Because I remember watching that tournament, but it was kind of a similar thing. Everything's going wrong. You're down. You don't know what to do. And all of a sudden it clicks. I was catching fish one after the other. I think I called every single fish that I had my limit in like 35 minutes.
Wow.
On one spot that I had fished several times throughout the day. Like, they just set up right, everything, the stars aligned, and I caught them. I won that tournament by half an inch.
Dude.
Which, honestly, by looking at the dude that got second, looking at his pictures, I think I stretched my fish out to win that tournament. I honestly think his fish were a little bit bigger than mine.
If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But
that's kayak tournaments. You got to know how to take that picture.
Yeah. I mean, come on, Photoshop is a thing. Come on, get on it. But yeah, like,
hey, don't be putting that on me.
I put it on myself. You guys can like hate me in the comment section. I said it.
But no, yeah. That tournament, like, I'm not gonna lie to anyone. I was broke. I was using my mom's credit card to get down there. I'm so thankful to have their support. I was driving my grandmother's car because my car was in the shop with a blown up motor. And that one tournament, like, it meant more to me than any other tournament I've ever fished, just because I had come from the lowest of lows and the worst tournament I have had in my life to on top of the world. And it makes you appreciate it that much more. Like, when you're doing good, you expect to do good. When you're struggling and you're down and you finally get your stuff together, there's nothing better than that.
Once you've experienced that, where you have to, and you hear this from everyone that has greatness in them. It's in, I was listening to this ebook today about like Tolkien, like wrote Lord of the Rings when he was in a foxhole, and then the person that wrote Harry Potter was broke and didn't actually have a roof over her head. It's like when you are at like rock bottom, you find yourself. And it sounds like the one thing that you've had success when you were at the high points, but then you were able to, in the trench, you were able to really put it together. And I think that is a testament not only to your character, but your skill set. And you need that if you want to make it in this sport, or regardless in any like profession. It's easy to do well when everything is well, but it's completely different when the shit hits the fan.
Yes, it really is. And
So,
it just makes you appreciate the rest of the success that much more when you don't have success and you struggle.
yes, 100%. And you've been successful. I mean, clearly, I mean, look at your wall. I mean,
Yeah.
you've had all that success too, but like to be able to believe in yourself though. And that's the thing is, I feel like when you have the highs, you're right. Like it's so weird unless you've been there, but it's like you think it'll never, like you'll never experience like a rainy day. And then when you experience that first rainy day, you think like, well, I'm just shit. I should throw myself off a building. But then when you get through that, all of a sudden you know that you can weather both. You can weather the highs and the lows, and that just makes you a different character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have said it better. It just completely changes your outlook on it. And, no matter how good you're doing, you're not guaranteed to catch them in the next one. I mean, every single person's just as likely to come off of a win and go and have their worst tournament as they are to have more success. Like, you
Yeah.
never know what's going to happen in this sport.
No, and that's what makes it so much fun too, though. It really does. So do you have any stories to add to that, like what Edwin did?
I mean, my senior year of high school, had an incredible year. Won pretty much every single tournament in Tennessee high school bass nation, which is a hard thing to do.
You're like, I've never suffered in my life. I just piss.
No, I absolutely have. I mean, won Angler of the Year, won the state championship, was a high school All-American, and then kind of came into college fishing and got humbled big time. These guys are really good. I'm not saying the high school guys aren't, but it's definitely a step up, and still adjusting to that. I had a pretty good year last year. Was sitting in the top 15 pretty much every single day one, and struggling every single day two. But like you said, that just highs and lows of this sport, I think, is what keeps us coming back to it. I think it's what makes us addicted to it, is that thrill of having the high and just not knowing what's coming next.
And you can fail. Like I think, like we were talking about this earlier with like saltwater kayak fishing. Like you feel like when you hook into something big, it's like I could die. Like, and it's so cool about like fishing is like you could bottom out. Like it's not like any other sport where if you're Usain Bolt, you're always gonna fish in the top 2%. In fishing, you could be Jacob Wheeler and you could still bomb.
Right.
And I think that's what makes it such a cool sport is it makes you feel alive that like you got to be on top of your stuff because it's not guaranteed you could just throw your rods out there and that you're going to fish in the top 5% every single time.
And we really found out up there at Saginaw Bay, like I could die.
Yeah. Yeah.
That part was emphasized at that tournament.
It was.
Talk about that a little bit. Like how was that experience?
I mean, it sucked for sure. But I mean, I got a new truck and boat out of it, so I guess that's good. The back's healing up well. No surgery or anything, no physical therapy. Feel good. So, I mean, we had a good practice. Sucked we didn't get to fish, but it's all right.
You get to practice. Like, did you get to see the bay at all?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we fished it for 3 days.
Yeah,
Okay.
4 days, and we fished it last year too.
I don't know if you know anything about Saginaw Bay, but there's this thing called Charity Island.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is it? It's probably 10 miles from the shore.
It's 10 miles from each shoreline, and then it's like
Lake Erie.
It's off of Huron.
Yeah, it's Huron. Yeah, and Charity Islands is kind of where everybody goes to catch the smallmouth. It's like the big.
Oh, to the
left.
You see the bay to the left with the big island at the mouth?
Those Charity Islands.
Guys, that's like a suicide mission. So
his
in the tracker?
No.
Okay, thank God.
Ranger aluminum, 19-footer with a 150. We made it.
I don't know if that's better or not. You should just float out there with a basketball.
I mean, honestly, we passed some glass boats on our way out there. That thing took it beautifully.
Yeah.
The way the waves are set up, you're almost better off to have a shorter boat.
Really?
Because instead of coming off of one and stuffing into the next one, you're coming down and then you go back up.
Where are you launching from for this suicide mission?
Well, we never actually got to launch from the place where the tournament was out of. We were launching closer.
Good.
We were planning on going largemouth fishing because of how our practice went and during the tournament. Just didn't get to go do it. But that place, incredible smallmouth, incredible largemouth. If someone is looking for a place to go, just have a fun trip.
It's where to go.
That's
awesome. An awesome place.
Best largemouth fishing I've seen in my life.
Yeah.
And it's, even if the wind's blowing, you can just go to a protected shoreline and you can go catch them. It doesn't matter where you are. There are 2 to 3 pound largemouth on every bank. If there's grass, there's big bass.
That's freaking awesome, guys. Okay. So, I don't know. I'm looking at the watch here. We're at 2 hours. I don't want to go 3 hours tonight with everything. So, each of you, give me your top 3 things this year. Top 3 things, dreams, don't care what it is. I mean, it's not break your back again or destroy another truck. Maybe is one. But
are we doing goals or top 3 things that have happened?
How about goals? Let's do goals.
Goals. So I'd like to not bomb at the TOC like I did last year.
That's an optimistic look on life. Good job.
I want to, which linked into that, is I want to make that top 3 in the Hobe, BOS, AOI, and make it to Hobe Worlds. That's a huge goal of mine. I'd like to win it, but that's, you can't just go, I want to win that. I just want to be in that top 3, get to that Hobe Worlds. I've got buddies that are there right now. It looks like an incredible experience to go fishing. They're in Sweden right now for a pike tournament out of kayaks. That's just awesome.
That's freaking awesome.
I'd like to see, this is kind of a personal goal because I've been hands-on with getting it started, but college kayak fishing. We now have a kayak team at Carson Newman. I actually fished the Susquehanna event out of a Hobe Outback, which is provided by our school, which
Seriously?
is really cool. Yes, and I'd really like to see this sport grow. It has a lot of potential. Just need more people to get some interest in it, because there is so much opportunity for kids that have little to nothing. Those kids that fishing out of someone else's boat during high school, just hopping in the boat with someone. They can go and they can be independent at tournaments, really test their limits in these kayaks. And the schools can actually afford to buy kayaks for these kids. The money that they save in gas from not having boats in one season, they can buy 5 kayaks.
Yeah, 100%. And pimp them out a little bit too.
Yeah, and I mean, it's what our school has done for us is pretty great, and I'd just like to help that grow. I guess a third goal, qualify for another college national championship. I mean, that's always got to be a goal.
How many have you qualified for?
I have qualified for 2. I I guess technically I qualified for 3, but one of them I got disqualified before I got to go there because technically I was still a high schooler and not supposed to fish that, but I fished the tournament because it was delayed due to COVID. Qualified for the national championship. Made a post on Instagram about how we qualified for the national championship to only get that taken away from us. But on the bright side, when we were told we couldn't go to that one, we qualified. We were on our way to, actually, we were practicing for a FLW tournament, or MLF, I guess, on Kentucky Lake, and we qualified for the MLF National Championship at that tournament. So I want to get back into a groove with the boat stuff and try to show these college boys I can still catch them.
I think you can still catch them. I don't think there's a problem there with that. All right.
For
You've had
me,
time to think about it.
yeah, like Ewing said, definitely the national championship, qualifying for one of those. Something I've yet to do. My 2 years of fishing college, I've not qualified. I've gotten real close a lot of times. I haven't qualified yet. Another thing is I want to fish a major tournament, whether that be in an open, a Toyota series, or something, or even a Hobe, something like that. I want to start to dabble my toes into that. And then another thing is getting my GPA up, getting some good grades. Had a rough start to college with grade wise, and are slowly building it up, but I want to make it better.
Why don't we make that the first priority, that you don't have to start your own OnlyFans to like pay for your fishing derbies?
Yeah.
So that's 2. We need one more. Like, don't flunk out of college, fish a big tournament. Let's get a third.
I would absolutely love to win one. That would be huge. It's been a long time since I've won a tournament. A college tournament is what I would like to win. I think it would be awesome.
When it's your time, it's your time. Like
Right.
I'm sorry, it's gay that we keep saying that, and you probably heard that 1,000 times, but it's so true. It really is. Like,
It really is.
You can't do anything wrong when it's your time.
Mm-mm.
You're gonna.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. Like, the one tournament I won, I forget, it was like 6 or 10 grand, but like one of the fish I snagged in the head. Like, and it was honestly like it should have come off, but it didn't. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, that's just stupid.
You like tug a fish out of a tree that it
Yeah.
wrapped you around 6 times on 8-pound line, that type of stuff.
Like, and that's where I think, like, I listened to something with Aaron Martins back in the day, and it was like winning is luck, but finishing in the top like 20%, that's the skill part. Like, I mean,
Right.
and the way it meant is not to belittle guys that win, but the fact is, like, everything has to go right to win, but you can make a lot of the decisions that you finish in the top part of the field. Like, that is in your control most of the time.
I
And that's
feel
what
like most of the top 10% of a field, I'd say at least 25% of the top 10% from the very bottom of that. Well, at least depending on how close it is. But I feel like a lot of those guys that they might not look like they were that close, but they were, 2 fish that they lost at the net away from winning it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that happen so many times where I haven't even cut a check and I should have blown the tournament out of the water. Like, getting those bites, and it's, you see those guys that they're consistently right there, almost, just out of check, barely got a check. Usually those are your best fishermen because they just haven't had the stars align.
And
That's still
I agree with you so much. Like, some tournaments, like, I've not been mad at. I didn't do well, but I was doing the same things that the winners did. And so I got out of there like, I'm okay, because the decision making was there. I didn't execute correctly.
It's worse that you were like literally like deep and everybody else was shallow and you were not even the same ballpark. That's completely different. But if I knew like I was fishing the same types of patterns the winners did, I'd be like, okay, at least my head was in the right place. The decisions were correct. I can leave this event knowing that, and that's good. But so anyway, guys, this is Fishing the DMV. Please like and subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Link in the episode description to everything that they have below. We're at about the 2-hour mark, and we're going to have both these guys on again for another interview at some point because I really want to just check up on this story about how you guys do in your first event. Did you break your back again? Did you fish the Hobe Nationals? Like, there's a lot of things going on here. We'll catch you next time on Fishing the DMV. Bye.
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your hosts, Thomas Ahrens and Jared Mounts. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.